Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, born the 7th of October 1952, is a Russian politician and former Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, serving as the second President of Russia from the 7th of May 2000 until the 7th of May 1952, 2008, and is the fourth President of Russia since May 7, 2012 to present. He assumed this position, according to the Constitution, from December 31, 1999, after former Governor Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin resigned. Life and career. Parents of Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin: Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin and Maria Ivanovna Sholomova-Putina. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin in his youth. Putin was born in Leningrad, St. Petersburg since 1991 and before 1914. Putin graduated from the International Department of Law Faculty of St. Petersburg in 1975 and was recruited into the KGB. In the book First Person, Putin told journalists about his first missions in the KGB, including the repressive operations in Leningrad. From 1985 to 1990, the KGB transferred Putin to work in Dresden, East Germany, in a position he considered low-ranking. After the East German regime subsided, Putin was recalled to the Soviet Union and returned to Leningrad, where in June 1990 he was given a position at the International Relations Department of Leningrad State University, directly under representation. In June 1991, he was appointed head of the International Committee at the St. Petersburg, with responsibility for strengthening international relations and foreign investment. Putin officially ceased operations in the field of national security on August 20, 1991, when the KGB backed an early failed coup against Soviet President Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev. In 1994, he became first vice president of St. Petersburg under Anatoly Sobchak, a position he held until he was called to Moscow in August 1996 to accept several senior positions within Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin's second government. He was the civilian head of the General Security Locality of the Russian Federation (FSB), successor to the KGB from July 1998 to August 1999, and served as Secretary of the Security Committee from March to August 1999. In the 1990s, Putin received a doctorate in economics from the Mining Academy in St. Petersburg. His thesis was titled Strategic Planning of Regional Resources in the Context of Establishing Market Relationships. In August 1999, Yeltsin appointed Putin as Russia's prime minister, replacing his predecessor Sergei Stepashin. Soon after, Putin quickly became popular in Russia due to the September 1999 Russia-Chechnya conflict in response to the war in Dagestan and the Russian house bombing. After this campaign, post-war movements, Putin received solid support in the 1999 parliamentary elections. By the end of 1999, under great pressure from religious leaders as well as the Russian people, Yeltsin decided to resign and Putin became interim president. In the March 2000 election, he placed first among 10 candidates and became the second presidential member of the post-Soviet Russian Federation. Due to constitutional limits, no more than 2 consecutive terms as president of Russia, Putin cannot extend his leadership to a third term. After the success of his successor, Dmitry Medvedev, during his candidacy for president of Russia in 2008, he was nominated by Medvedev to be Prime Minister of Russia and officially elected on May 8, 2008. In 2012, he continued to run for president and achieved an elected term. Third election with 63% of the electoral votes. In 2018, Putin won 77% of the presidential vote in the March 2018 election, meaning he will continue to serve as president of Russia for a 6-year term that will end in 2024. Putin speaks German almost as well as his native language, and English at an average level. Putin's wife is Lyudmila Putina, a former aviation member and German teacher, student in Kaliningrad, formerly Königsberg. They have 2 daughters, Maria born 1985 and Yekaterina Katya born 1986 in Dresden. The two attended the German school in Moscow Deutsche Schule Moscow until he was appointed prime minister. News on June 7, 2013 on BBC said that Putin and his wife announced their divorce after nearly 30 years of marriage. On February 4, 2014, Putin's spokesman, Mr. Dmitry Peskov, announced in Moscow that two people were officially quarantined. Putin is a member of the Russian Orthodox Church. His father was an atheist, but his mother was a fervent Orthodox believer. Although she did not keep icons at home, she attended church regularly, refusing to accept the suppression by the Soviet government at that time. She made sure Mr. Putin received a small resurrection ceremony and often took him to the ceremony. His father knew this but ignored it. According to Putin's narrative, his renaissance in religious sentiment occurred after his wife's serious car accident in 1993 and was deepened after a large, life-threatening fire at their rural dacha. His in August 1996. Katerina Tikhonova, Putin's youngest daughter, married Kirill Shamalov in February 2013, the son of his friend. Thanks to this relationship, according to Reuters news agency, Kirill borrowed more than $1 billion from a bank to buy shares in Sibir Petrochemical Company, a large Russian enterprise. In just 18 months, Putin's son-in-law held a large amount of shares worth $2.85 billion in Sibir. On the sidelines, practice martial arts like judo. One of Putin's favorite sports is judo. Putin began practicing judo when he was 13 years old and continues to practice today. Putin won competitions in his hometown of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, including the Children's Championship in Leningrad. He is the president of Yawara Dojo, the dojo in St. Petersburg where he trained in his youth. A book co-authored by Putin about his favorite sport has been published in English under the title Judo. Although he is not the first world leader to practice judo, Putin is the first leader to reach high levels in this subject. He currently holds a black belt 6th dan and is best at haragoshi, a hip throw. After a state visit to Japan, Putin was invited to the Kodokan Judo Academy to demonstrate to Japanese practitioners and officials various judo techniques. In addition to judo, he also studied Kyokushinkan karate and received an 8th dan black belt, the 8th dan of 10 dan. Interest: Putin wears a Patek Philippe Calatrava watch worth $60,000, roughly equivalent to his presidential salary. Even though he is right-handed, he wears his watch on his right hand because if I wear it on my left wrist, the little winding knob will touch my hand and rub against it. Hobby of being shirtless. Putin has a hobby of going shirtless when going on picnics. In early August 2009, Putin attracted attention usually reserved for Hollywood action heroes when the Kremlin released pictures of him fishing, swimming, boating and horseback riding while shirtless. Shows off her breasts in the Siberian mountains and is used to the fullest by world media agencies. During a brief visit to the grasslands and rivers of Russia's Republic of Tuva, the Prime Minister took off his shirt to chop firewood, rode a horse and did a butterfly swim in a stream, all for the pleasure of government cameras. Take a shot. Two Russian state television stations broadcast images of Putin's leisurely hours on the evening of August 4th, and within hours, every media outlet in the world, from the BBC to newspapers, tabloids are rushing to exploit it, partly because of the appeal of a month with slow news. August is usually the least news month of the year. The Western media seems fascinated by the image of a tough-talking former KGB intelligence lieutenant colonel, considered the real ruling power behind President Dmitry Medvedev's throne, taking off his shirt to show off his vassalage. Like everything, for the masses to admire. And taking off his shirt to show off Putin's body also seems to show that he is now in the same ranks as world politicians who are sought after by the media, such as US President Barack Obama and French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Even the website specializing in discussing the private lives of Hollywood actors also joined in, by making fun of the Prime Minister's chest. The 56-year-old showed off his weapons of destruction, also known as his breasts, by riding a horse shirtless while on holiday in Siberia. The National Post in Canada reported that Putin clearly enjoys being photographed. The images are numerous and it is easy for the former KGB agent to produce one in his calendar. Frequently late, Putin is notorious for being often late, even for appointments with heads of state and religious leaders. Many European leaders often have to wait for him for an hour or less. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry had to walk in Red Square for 3 hours to meet Putin, and former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych even had to wait for hours. The 2 times he met Pope Francis, he was also late. The list of people who had to wait for Putin during meetings also includes female politicians such as British Queen Elizabeth II, Korean President Park Geun-hye, or German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Even his ex-wife, Lyudmila Putina, once complained that Mr. Putin often let her climb trees right from their first dates. BBC in 2013 quoted a source close to Putin saying that Putin was late for appointments as a result of him being too meticulous. According to this source, before important meetings, Putin often carefully checks information sources and details, so he is always late.